Now we have Yasmin Alibhai-Brown, who many of you will know, who's been a journalist now for, I think, what, nearly 30 odd years since you left Uganda? but has written for the Independent, the Evening Standard, and is also the chair of British Muslims for Secular Democracy. So please welcome Yasmin Alibhai-Brown.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was late. I'm always late. I'm really sorry. And I don't know what the previous speakers have spoken about, but I think I too would like to broaden it beyond the specific subject. Today's column that I wrote, which I wrote with great emotion, was about how Muslims in this country, whatever labels are put upon us, and I'm not an atheist, I'm a non-conformist Muslim light, if you like, who prays and drinks wine. I believe that even almost everywhere you look in terms of institutional practice in the courts, increasingly it is becoming clear that Muslims are not receiving, are not treated as equal citizens under the law. And there's a case going on at the moment in Isleworth Crown Court, which really should be in the news every day, because that illustrates, in a way, why it is important to have one law for everybody and equality under the law for everybody. That's one side of the picture. The Sharia law demand is the other side of the picture. But I do want to say that the Isleworth case, where Judge Dennis is handing out, I think it's John Dennis, is handing out these sentences which academic researchers and campaigners and now MPs are saying have never been handed over for demonstrations before. This is in response to the demonstration, not, a very obviously emotional demonstration over Gaza near the Israeli embassy. It wasn't only Muslim men who were demonstrating, but except for two, I think, all the arrests were of Muslim men, and they're being processed as if this is a factory. And the sentences that are being handed out are grossly disproportionate. And I think one of the ways you argue for one law for all is to point out that the same Muslims who want Sharia law would be very angry, are very angry, when the law treats Muslims differently. And I think we need to emphasize that this is a broader struggle. It isn't just about Sharia and the very sinister, actually, injection of religious influence into life, as has been said before, not just Muslim lives, but all sorts of lives. So I want to make it a broader issue, that when we live in a country, especially a complex democracy with so many different people, just like India has, or actually any country, the separation of state and faith is fundamental, and equality is the other fundamental. And the same people, I mean, this is the irony, the same people who argue that the courts and police treat Muslims unjustly and unequally, in the next breath will argue that they want to have Sharia law for family disputes. So I think that's one broader argument that needs to be put. And the other broader argument, just a few weeks ago, there was this poor Jewish woman, Orthodox Jewish woman, I think we must have all read it, who waited 40 years to get her divorce under the religion. 40 years she spent her time waiting for the husband, because she couldn't get a divorce under Orthodox Jewish the system, until he agreed. So we're not just talking about one group, although it is the Sharia development that most worries many of us, because that's just another step. People have mentioned the interventions by the Pope. I remember, fantastic, I thought, a couple of years ago when Labour said it would ensure that all faith-based schools, because they're funded by you and I, would be compelled to have 25% of the pupils from any other background. So they could be religious, non-religious, of other backgrounds. Within 4 days. 4 days is all it took for the bishops and others in the House of Lords and so on to get rid of this very important change that would have been brought in to faith-based schools, which we shouldn't have anyway, in my view, and we should be completely rethinking. I disagree with Pragna, although I'm very, very interested in the research that is forthcoming, and I shall look at it with some optimism, because in my experience as a journalist and as a person who gets a lot of people coming to me with one thing or another, I have seen an astonishing number of young women actually opting for, wanting, demanding, feeling they must have, otherwise they'll go to hell, these Muslim arbitration tribunals. An astonishing number of young women, young British-born, educated women. Now, one has to explore that. It is the same question as asking why do so many young women and their children now, why are they more covered up than ever were Muslim children even 5 years ago? What is going on here in terms of influencing people's heads to the extent that they feel that is the only choice they must make? Because I do believe that there are women who are not just being pushed into it by their men in that way, but who have been kind of driven into it by forms of brainwashing I don't think we've even begun to understand. I remember talking to a little girl the other day, because she had a headscarf on and a cloak, and I said, why are you wearing this in my neighborhood? I said, why are you wearing this? She's about 8 years old. She said, because my mum wants me to. I said, oh, okay. And if I don't, I'll go to hell. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to listen to this, who spoke with a London accent. I don't know who told her mother this, but there is a kind of change in women's attitudes from the time when Pragna and others set up Southall Black Sisters, and this alarms me, although, like I said, I look forward to looking at the research. I think all faith-based interventions, and there are more and more of them, the adoption in homosexuality, all sorts of faith-based schools. I have no idea why in a modern democracy we have in the pipeline over 300 faith-based schools. And what I'm suggesting is the law, the Sharia law and Muslim arbitration tribunals fit into this bigger kind of drift towards placating, more than placating, religious demands, which we should all be extremely wary of and should be campaigning about. I think Pragna is very right that the dressing up of these tribunals and the dressing up of many of the most sinister Muslim organizations as the voice of the Muslim Britons, and which is never verified, and B, as really professional, really modern, really kind of part of the progressive world. They've learnt the talk and walk the walk, but actually what goes on is extremely alarming. There are 2 or 3 other larger points I want to make. I think with Labour, the politics that led us to this place, we all know about, giving in to so-called community leaders' demands, community leaders who were never elected, for the sake of votes, developing these enclaves, these fiefdoms,